Welcome to The Good, The Bad, The Ugly, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Johnathan, aka 3-Piece Combo, and in today's segment, we are joined by my buddy from Walkouts and Knockouts, Mr. Ariel Attias. How you doing, my friend?
I think I'm doing good. A lot of negativity on the timeline over the last couple of days. Understandably so. The Heat got absolutely blasted. That shit hurt. But yeah, feeling good. I've got a good feeling about Game 3. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, man. It's almost kind of like there's something left in the bag, right? You know, the last time there's obviously famously the first time the Heat won a championship, they were down 0-2. And I'm sure there were lots of people that were on the downturn of that team thinking the team was going to fold. And, hey, they won 4 straight. And who's to say that we don't do that, right? We have a all-time great coach in Eric Spoelstra. We have a great leader in Jimmy Butler, a good young guy in Bam Adebayo, a decent, solid bench, a couple of good role players. We can do it. We just got to string the right things together coming up in this game. So, taking one last look at last game, just overall as a summary, basically it ended the first quarter, right? We took a punch and we couldn't respond from that. How did you feel about game 2? Sorry.
I felt like, just like you said, I mean, the Bucks came out and just punched the Heat in the mouth. They definitely have the taste of last year and that playoff defeat still in their mouths. It's kind of incumbent on the Heat to say to themselves at some point, like, okay, there's definitely schematic things that we can do differently. There are adjustments to be made for sure. Player X has to do more of this. Player Y has to do more of that. But at the end of the day, like, you need to get out there and match the intensity and say, we're not going out like this. I didn't see that in game 2, and maybe it took them getting, absolutely smacked in the face for them to wake up a little bit. And that has to be the hope going into the next game. But the Bucks just crushed them in every area, all hustle areas from the 3-point line at the rim. Like, they just dominated that game. There were almost no positives, so I feel like the good from this game is going to be a little bit short maybe. But I guess we'll try and find something.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wasn't even planning on having a good segment. I was just going to say like 2 words, just Dewayne Dedmon, and then just call it a day for the good segment. But overall, I want to say, thanks everybody in the comments joining us. Crypta, Drew Holidays, Burner, for Farid joining us, Ayan Ali, of course, always commenting on the videos. Appreciate everybody joining us in the comments. And if you guys have thoughts as well as for what you guys think as far as the good, the bad, and the ugly, something you think we did not mention as we're talking, go ahead and leave it in the comments and we'll talk about it as well. Yeah, game's tomorrow, by the way. A lot of people thought we were playing today. Game's actually tomorrow. So let's get into a little bit of the good, right? Because there was one thing that can actually compound into a little bit more if we build on it, right? Let's talk about Dewayne Dedmon. And there's kind of been some rumblings and some talk if he should be the guy that's starting next to the Bam because of the rebounding issue, the size issue that Milwaukee presents. How did you feel Dewayne Dedmon impacted game 2 with his energy?
I thought he was probably their best player in that game. As much as we want to try and draw a positive out of that, it's probably not a good thing. When Dewayne Dedmon is your best player in a playoff game, you're probably not going to do too well in that game. We saw how that played out. Amongst all players who played over 18 minutes, he had the best plus-minus. His plus-minus was -15 or something. Yeah, it was -15. So, it's kind of hard to draw positives from this game. He's been really good in this series. It's a matchup where I feel like, he holds some value because he's really good around the rim in terms of just like finishing. Like, he's just good at being big. There's nothing flashy to his game. There's nothing special that, makes it. He's not tremendously skilled or anything, but he's just good at being big. He's a vet. He knows where to be. He has a nose for the ball. He's a good rebounder. So he does provide some value in the matchup there against the Bucks. I don't know if I love the idea of him starting because you're taking your one productive big off of the bench, putting him in the starting 5. And I kind of feel like you can increase his minutes without necessarily starting him and then having to pull one of him or Bam early so that you can still bring one of them back off the bench and have one of them on the court at all times. Just bring Dedmon off the bench, in my opinion. You can still play him with Bam, but I don't feel like the idea of starting him necessarily is the answer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that what Trevor Ariza brings to that starting lineup is kind of crucial to what we've been doing, right? There's a lot of switching, especially within the 3 stars. We talked about the way that Bam, Jimmy, and Trevor can kind of switch, equally on Drew, Giannis and Middleton. So to keep that alive, having that third guy there, if you have a Dedmon out there, he's not going to be able to switch onto a guy like Drew or a guy like Middleton without getting cooked a little bit easier. So I think, like you said, increasing the minutes without starting him probably is going to be key. Having him on the floor a little bit more, just so we can impact the game. I do like the idea of having him out there with Bam a little bit more because he's shown to at least take the three, right? And I mean, who are we to not question or to question that? Because when he's taken it, he's shot it pretty well, right? I'd say out of the 4 I've seen him take, he's probably made 2 or 3. So decent on the 3, right? Obviously, that's not high volume. But as far as that goes, that's probably the only thing that I can take out of the game that's good. Was there anything else that you saw that we can take away going into game 3?
Takeaways? No, not really. I mean, there was, let's be real. There was nothing good in that game. There's nothing that you say, oh, that's like legitimately translatable. Maybe, I guess, Goran Dragic's play. He's been good in the 2 games. So you hope he can keep doing that. Maybe that's an adjustment that Spo makes in terms of inserting him into the starting 5. Again, I really don't think it matters all that much. But in light of what happened in game 2, right? Like the Bucks came out and punched the Heat in the mouth and they were up 18-2 or 16-2 before you knew it. So maybe I'm underplaying the value of making the adjustment to the starting 5 a little bit. I might be wrong there. I don't really feel like there's all that much good to take from this game, but I kind of feel like, again, I want to add one last thing on the Dedmon thing. You definitely have to adjust in playoff series. Eric Spoelstra has shown over the years that he's one of the best in the NBA at doing that. He might be the best coach in the NBA at making adjustments and changing things on the fly within playoff series. Jimmy Butler's talked about this. Like, he will try stuff. Spo's not afraid to try stuff. But I feel like I kind of feel like in this series, I don't know why. Something inside me tells me I want the Heat to stick to their principles because I feel like they can beat this team doing what they do best. They just have to bring that competitive disposition that we've seen lacking so many times before this season, right? Because when they bring their A game, they can beat any team in the league. We haven't seen it yet in this series. Game 1, they brought the competitive disposition and the effort and the attention to detail. They just missed some shots. They basically missed everything below the 3-point line. But I think if they bring their A game, you don't have to change all that much, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. It showed in game 1 what just slowing the game down, making it a little bit more gritty, and playing with a little more of a hard nose going to do, right? From game 1 to game 2, and let's talk about the bad a little bit. I think the biggest difference in game 2 is that we played in Milwaukee's pace, right? They started off and they were going really fast, scoring within, the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. And what did Miami do? Instead of allowing everybody to run back, settle the offense down, get everything going, we just tried to answer back right away. And when it didn't work, we were forced to play in transition against the lethal transition game of Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Yeah. So I think going into game 3, something that we're going to want to do is really just focus on slowing the pace down, right? If they get a fast break, cool. Take it back up, kill a couple seconds at the top of the 3-point line, waiting for actions to form, right? Slow things down, because when you're playing at Milwaukee's pace, they're going to beat you every time because the ball is swinging really fast. They have another creator in Drew Holiday that they didn't have last year, and they have a lot more options. How do you feel about that?
I think you're spot on. They're too good. You can't let the game be played at their pace. The Heat are the second slowest team in the NBA in terms of pace, while the Bucks are the second fastest team in the NBA in terms of pace. I mean, it really just comes down to which game whose game style is implemented more and what type of pace is the game played at. On the shoot around before game 1, I believe, Gadiel Cartagena and myself talked about like one of the potential, wrinkles that Eric Spoelstra probably wants to throw into this series is to pick the Bucks up full court a little bit more frequently in order to slow them down and make them eat into the shot clock as they get into their offense. Because it's not like they're not a super high turnover team in terms of opponent turnovers. Sorry. They don't force a zillion turnovers. They're like somewhere in the 18 or 20th rank in the NBA in terms of opponents' turnovers per game. The way that they play fast is they just inbound the ball and they go. So it's not so much about taking care of the ball, though that is important. It's more about when they inbound the ball, your defense has to be set and you have to be picking them up full court. You maybe don't want to do that every single time because they have really intelligent, really good offensive players that'll figure out how to get the ball up court and then attack mismatches and attack number advantages. But if I'm the Heat, I definitely mix in that a little bit more. Make them eat into the shot clock. Make them be a more deliberate half-court team. Pick them up full court, fall back into your zone. Maybe that's something you add in. We haven't seen any zone at all in this playoff series. The Heat are having trouble keeping guys out of the paint, so maybe you mix in some zone. Hope that they miss some shots. If you're crisp with your zone, you're probably still able to contest those three-point attempts. It probably feels like a better adjustment to me than just defending man-to-man or switching everything. And then, the defense gets collapsed because the Bucks are getting into the paint whenever they want. And then they're spraying it to shooters, and then your rotations are off.
And the ball's always going to move faster than the player, right? There's never going to be they're never going to catch up to that. So with that saying, the defense just wasn't there. And it was because we weren't only, like you said, it wasn't even turnovers, right? And inbounding the ball. If we miss a shot, as soon as they get that rebound, they're just going straight up court. And they have more athletic guys than Miami, outside of maybe Bam and kind of Jimmy, right? We don't have that many athletic guys.
Yep.
So they're getting out. Giannis can jump and dunk on pretty much anybody on the Heat except Bam. So he's going uncontested to the rim. He's going with both hands strong. Same thing with Brook, right? All those guys are going with two hands strong to the rim. And like you said, once they collapse that paint, they're spraying it out to shooters. And these guys are NBA players, right? If they're getting an open shot that they're catching in rhythm, they're going to make the shot more times than not. So that's not something you want to do. But let's talk about the three-point shooting Miami Heat. I know that was something that you were talking about, a little bit before. Talk about something that was part of your bad for this for last game.
It's kind of discouraging, right? I mean, like in game one, the Heat, I believe, if I remember correctly, outshot the Bucks. I think they got 60 points at the three-point line while the Bucks got 15, something like that. Like it was a really big discrepancy. And then the Heat lost again. I mean, we know what happened, right? It was a game winner in overtime, almost at the buzzer by Chris Middleton. You tip your hat. That game could have gone either way. It went down to the last possession. But then in game two, the Bucks kind of like, their shooting regressed in a positive way back to the mean. They got hot like crazy. And I think they ended up shooting, I'm taking a look right now. Okay, so they only shot 41% from three, but I think it's more the timeliness and when all of those threes came. They all came in the first half, and more specifically in the first quarter, where they basically put this game away right off the bat. And the Heat shot just 28% from three in that game. So there was a pretty big role reversal there. I think the Heat definitely need to win the battle at the 3-point line in order to be successful in this series. They haven't been a great 3-point shooting team this year, but the Bucks are taking away so much of what the Heat like to do. Like the Heat aren't getting to the rim with the same frequency that they normally do. And even if they do get to the rim, Brook Lopez is sitting camped in the lane because Bam Adebayo doesn't want to take the mid-range shot. And they know that Jimmy and Bam want to get to the rim. So Brook Lopez is dropping on every screen action, and he's just sitting in the paint, not getting called for 3 seconds ever, which is a little bit baffling to me, but I digress on that. So there has to be adjustments made in order to pull Brook Lopez out of that paint, because if you don't, it's going to be more of the same. If they're taking away the paint and the Heat can't make threes, it's a wrap.
Yeah, because that's the main thing of our two stars, right? Bam and Jimmy are two non-shooting stars. So to come in and to try to just make three-pointers happen, it's kind of like you have to just hit it right on every single time. And if you don't, there's no fallback plan. So I want to say what's up, Cap for Life, always joining us as well. Appreciate you joining us. But let's get back into some more of the bad, man. Three-point shooting, like you said, is going to have to start inside out. It can't start with us just trying to do dribble handoffs and do it like that. And like you said, Brook Lopez is playing every passing lane because he knows Bam Adebayo is not going to attack him. So like Al said in the post game last time, he's playing safety, right? He's out there playing safety, helping in those passing lanes. So we need to do something to pull Brook outside of there because he's too big in the paint and he'll knock you down to the floor, right? But we saw what he did to Jimmy in game one, and that was the reason I felt like he started taking more threes instead of driving into the paint, because you don't want to get knocked down every time, right? Sure, you want to draw the foul, but you don't want to put your body on the line every single time and risk getting hurt, right? I.e. Chris Paul. But let's talk about some more of the bad stuff in this one. Talk to me about something else that you saw from this game.
I think that's a great segue right there. You just brought up Jimmy. I'm going to go right to Jimmy. He is the Miami Heat's leader. He's their alpha. He's the heart and soul, the heartbeat of that team. And I don't want to go as far as to say that he's disengaged, because we've seen that dude do things that feel like they're superhuman. Like in the finals last year, the Heat had no business even being competitive in that series without Goran Dragic, who was playing at an absurd level for, I think, like 5 of those games or 4.5 of those games. And with Bam Adebayo missing 2 of those games and then coming back, but clearly not being at 100% and not being himself in that series. What Jimmy did was absurd. So I'm not going to write that dude off. He's shown me that he can go superhuman and do incredible things, go toe-to-toe with LeBron James in the finals while being outmatched. But I thought in game one, that wasn't the case at all. I mean, he just missed shots. The Bucks defended him really, really well. He wasn't able to get to the rim with the same frequency, and when he did, he missed a bunch of bunnies. Like, there were multiple layup and put back type attempts that Jimmy just missed. He'd normally make those, and he was forced into taking a lot of jump shots, a lot of them due to the fact that the Bucks perimeter defenders are just really good. They were able to stay in front of Jimmy, and if he wanted to get to the paint, Brook Lopez was sitting there waiting for him, so he had to take jumpers. He shot something like 3 of 17 on uncontested jumpers in game one. You would have expected that to correct itself in game two. However, in game two, just the lack of general engagement within that game from Jimmy was a little bit jarring. I don't want to write a storyline or create a storyline based on one game and one performance. I very much expect Jimmy Butler to bounce back and have a monster game three. But if he doesn't, this series over. It's just done. Like, the Heat need their best player to not just be their best player, but be the best player on the court. There are adjustments to be made, but I think it just comes down to the mentality. He needs to come out from the gate, assert himself. Don't look to get anybody involved as much. You come out, you get yours, Jimmy Butler. Like Stephen A. Smith said yesterday, and I very rarely agree with Stephen A. Smith, you're Jimmy freaking Butler. Remember that. Go out there and be that guy, because that's what the team needs.
Absolutely, man. Going into a pivotal game three where if we lose this game, you know, the Miami Heat are basically out of the playoffs and going to be a first-round sweep. And not only that, look, like kind of like people are saying the fluke, right? People want to call it a fluke. Obviously, we as Heat fans know that's not true, and anybody that knows basketball know that's not true. But it validates it, right? It makes that narrative be able to spell a little bit more. And with Jimmy Butler having to go to this game three, you took 10 shots in game two. You had, what was it? Was it 10 points?
Yeah, 10 points. 4 of 10, 10 points.
10 points. Sure, if you had 25 points, it wouldn't have made a difference. You got blown out, right? But you need to show and assert yourself on that game. You need to take control of that game. When that game was going out of hand, instead of dribbling it up and going 1-on-4 and trying to get in the paint and maybe take a tough fadeaway jumper that we know you can make, but that's not the look that you want to get. That's not the thing you want to do as if you're Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler needs to slow the pace down. He needs to grind this game out. He needs to get to the free throw line. He only took, 4 free throws last game? It needs to be 10 plus every single game, because that's the physical Jimmy Butler that we know leads this team. And if Jimmy Butler is not doing that, nobody on this team is going to be doing that, because the tone that he sets is a tone that everybody else is going to follow. And that was my ugly. So Jimmy was my ugly as far as that one goes. But anything as far as the bad goes before we want to close up with your ugly?
Yeah, I've got one more. Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Trevor Ariza. The Heat have gotten next to nothing out of 3 very important role players for them in this series. I think it was in game 2, those 3 had a combined 13 points. That's inexcusable. For the series, a combined 41 points. That's an average of I don't want to do the math, but it's single digits per game between 3 players. Like it is really bad. So I think this falls a little bit more on Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero. I know Tyler didn't get a ton of minutes in the last game. That's a little bit baffling to me. I wonder if there's something else going on there, but I don't want to speculate too much. As far as when those guys are on the court, they need to be taking advantage of what's happening and how the Bucks are defending them. So Brook Lopez drops all the time on every dribble handoff, on every screen action, but it's a deep drop. Like, he's not playing at the free throw line in terms of the drop. Like, he is literally sitting in the paint. If you're Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero, every time a dribble handoff is run for you, which I think needs to be done a little bit more, the Heat ran less dribble handoffs in game 2. They need to get back to that, because that's what they do. They are who they are.
Why do we do that? I had no idea why we ran less dribble handoffs. If you look at the beginning of game 1, sorry to cut you off. Beginning of game 1, 3 straight dribble handoffs with Duncan Robinson. He had 9 points in the first 4 minutes of that game.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is why I kind of feel like, yeah, there are adjustments to be made, but I don't think you need to go crazy with the adjustments. Like, just run your stuff. The Bucks give up a lot of jumpers in terms of threes. Like, they're one of the poorest defending teams at the 3-point line because that's what they give you. That's by design. If I'm Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero, you need to be running more dribble handoff for those guys. And then they need to come off that screen, step into a three or a mid-range jumper in rhythm. Tyler Hero, over the course of the season, has been really good with that. Like, I mean, that is his game. If he keeps it simple and comes off the screen and just takes that open midi, that's his area. Don't complicate things. Just take that shot. Kendrick Nunn didn't have a good shooting game in game 2. I think he was like 4 of 14 and led the team in terms of field goal attempts. I don't know. There's not really a sample size to go off as far as he's concerned with the playoffs, because he didn't really play in the playoffs at all last year. But just schematically speaking, that's a look that should benefit those guys. And as far as Trevor Ariza goes, I'm not expecting anything from him offensively in this series. If you get an open three, hope he makes it. Defensively speaking, the Trevor Ariza on Giannis experiment needs to end. Like, he has nothing for him, because yes, he is tall, he is long for his height. He has like an insane 7'3" or 7'4" wingspan, something like that, which is tremendous. But Giannis is just bigger, he's stronger, and he's just as long. So the fact that, I don't want to really bring up the Jay comparison because they are different players, but Jay, while giving up the size to Giannis, was able to hold his own against him to some extent in the post last year because he's just stronger. He's bulkier. Like, he's a more physical defender, whereas Trevor Ariza uses his length to his advantage. That advantage is negated against a guy like Giannis. So if I'm the Heat, one of the adjustments that I do make, I'm putting Trevor Ariza at the point of attack. Put him on Drew Holiday. Put him on whoever's bringing up the ball. Let Bam guard Giannis. Like, Bam has shown that he's one of the better guys in the league at defending Giannis. He's not going to stop him. Nobody's going to stop Giannis entirely. But you can slow him down and make him work harder for his points. I also don't want Jimmy guarding Giannis anymore. It's sapping him offensively, I think. I think Jimmy needs to be conserving his energy for that side of the ball offensively because the Heat need it. So Bam on Giannis, Trevor Ariza at the point of attack, guards attack off DHO. Do what you do. That's it.
Who do you put on Brook Lopez?
You probably, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking you put Trevor at the point of attack, but as I was saying that, I was saying, you know what? If you put Trevor at the point of attack, you've kind of got a problem with Brook. I might just stick Trevor Ariza on Brook Lopez and live with the results. If Brook is going to kill you, let Brook kill you. But, if you're letting Giannis get to the rim and do whatever he wants every single time, like, something needs to change. It can't be Trevor Ariza because he's not stopping him. And what the Heat are doing is not working defensively.
Yeah, it just showed, like you said, with Ariza, he's the guy that's a little more lengthy, right? So maybe if somebody's a shooter, he's the guy you want to put on him because he's able to contest, he's able to close out, keep guys in front of him. Giannis isn't doing those things. He's not trying to shoot on you. He's not really trying to use his elusiveness to get around you, right? He has that one spin move, but that's kind of his only thing. He taps that circle button on the controller and he spins. But he's trying to muscle you into the paint and get good looks inside of there. So, like you said, having Bam on him, which is kind of what we have to do. Sure, we might be afraid of having the foul trouble. That's probably why we don't do it so far. But we know Bam isn't going to be the leader on offense anyways, right? Have him be the leader on defense.
Yep.
Have him take the challenge of guarding the best player of Milwaukee because we know he can do it. If he picks up the foul, hey, it's game 3. Somebody said in the comments, basically, if we lose this game, the series is over. If we lose this game, the series is over. So why not start with Bam on there? Bam is smart enough to not pick up a lot of fouls, right? There's been very few times that I've remembered Bam Adebayo fouling out. So I just put him on Giannis because that's going to be the best matchup for us and make everything else up work otherwise because that team is built around him. While they do have other stars, Middleton and Drew Holiday, that team is still built around Giannis. So if we can still shut that off one-on-one without having to help off of him, that's going to make the defense a lot better. And that's going to get into one more thing before we get into the ugliest. My bad. The rebounding. We need to rebound a lot better. We cannot allow a great offense of Milwaukee to have second and third looks because at that point you're just playing the averages. Even if they shoot 0 of 2 for the first one, you go 1 for 3, that's 33%. If they shoot 33% all game long and they get 2 offensive rebounds every single time, they're scoring every single possession, right? And that's kind of what the Heat's been doing. We're allowing them to get too many offensive rebounds. So with putting another thing this will fix is putting Bam on Giannis will make sure that Bam is still going to be staying in the paint. right? He's going to make sure that because Giannis is, sometimes he'll take threes, but most of the times the shot will be in the paint. So if we have Bam in the paint, at least we know we have one guy that can help, secure an area of the court and block out to get that rebound. Your thoughts on the rebounding issue?
Well, I guess I'll use that to transition into the ugly because that was going to be my ugly. It's been bad. 61-36 in game 2 and 125-87 overall in the series. Now, I think part of that is due to the fact that the Bucks didn't miss anything in game 2. So there are just less available defensive rebounds for the Heat. And the Heat couldn't make anything in game 2. And then in game 1 as well, below the 3-point line, they shot very poorly. I think they shot sub 40% total for that game from the field. So there are more available rebounds for the Bucks. That's part of it. But the other part of it is they crash the glass hard and they have bigger dudes. Like sometimes that's all it comes down to.
Right.
They're just bigger. So if I'm the Heat, I don't really know. Like the knee-jerk reaction, like we talked about, was playing Dedmon more because he's a good rebounder and all of that. I think that creates some issues defensively for the Heat, like you had mentioned. You can't switch as much. You have to play a more conventional style of defense, which might work. Like I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm just trying to play out the scenario in my head. So there might just be, that'll help with the rebounding, but if it doesn't work out defensively and you can't switch, you have to play man more, and the Bucks are able to run what they want more, there just won't be as many rebounds because they're going to make everything again. So it might not even matter. It might not be an adjustment that's worth making. I think you should try it, though. I don't really know. I think for the Heat, the counter is to not really counter. Again, you run your stuff. You trust that your offense is going to work. We're in the playoffs. Like, we're not changing the system right now. You need to put – if you make your shots, there are less available rebounds. If you get what you got in game 1 in terms of the 3-point shooting, and then Jimmy doesn't go 3 of 17 on uncontested jumpers, and he goes like 8 of 17, let's say, which is good, but not great. It's just good. It's a totally different game. So the rebounding's a problem for sure. The only other adjustment I can think of there is more zone. Haven't played any zone. You got to be crazy.
This is a great idea.
Yeah, zone with Bam and Dedmon. Like, listen, I'm fine with it. Like, try it. Why not? You're already down 2-zip, and you're
nothing to lose now.
If you play zone, then you're forcing the Bucks to take jumpers more frequently than not. And if it isn't, I don't know. They've got so many good shooters, man. It's tough. But at the very least, you can keep the ball from getting into the paint, which has been a problem area for the Heat. And it keeps guys like Bam, and maybe if you do it with Bam and Dedmon, it keeps Bam and Dedmon on the back line, closer to the rim. They'll be there for any available rebounds. But again, I think the thing there is run your stuff, take advantage of the mid-range because that's going to be there all the time. Shoot well from 3 because that's going to be there all the time. You make your shots, there's less rebounds available. That cures that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be it. That's the most simple thing, right? If you make the shots, there's no rebound to be had. And we weren't making anything, and they were making everything. So that just made this disparity look that much bigger. My ugly was, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, Jimmy Butler, right? Jimmy Butler needs to come out in game 3 and absolutely assert himself as the best player on the court, right? Giannis is 2-time MVP, obviously better than Jimmy Butler, right, talent-wise. But he hasn't proven that he can lead a team to the finals yet, right? So Jimmy still has that edge to lead a team over, at least for a single game, right? We've seen it in the finals, just him be able to will a team for a single game set. And this game 3 needs to be treated like a game 7. So Jimmy needs to come out. It needs to be helped with Bam because Bam is going to need to be the guy to pull Brook out of the paint. Yep. But Jimmy's going to need to go and play aggressive and get to the line a lot in game 3 because slowing that down and getting to the free throw line is going to slow down the pace of Milwaukee. So it's going to be a double-edged sword. We're going to get better looks for Jimmy. He's going to get in his shooting groove. And on top of that, we're going to be able to get our defense set on the other end and play a little bit slower like the Heat want to play. So with that being said, are there any closing thoughts for this game 2 before we get into game 3 tomorrow?
Closing thoughts for game 2, not really. I do agree with everything you said about Jimmy. It's, similar to what I was saying before. At the end of the day, like you're talking about, he needs to be aggressive. He needs to get to the line. He needs to get help from Bam and all those guys. All of that is 100% valid. To me, what it screams is, like I had said earlier, just be that dude, Jimmy. Like, there's stylistic issues with playing the Bucks for Jimmy and for Bam. It's a tough defensive matchup, no doubt. But we've seen Jimmy do this against the team that is now the best defensive team or second best defensive team in the NBA, the LA Lakers, last year with no help. with his leading scorer, actually, Goran Dragic, on the shelf for almost that entire series, with Bam Adebayo being out of that series for large portions. And then when he was back in, he wasn't at 100%. But Jimmy was still able to put up absurd numbers. He is capable of taking his game to a level where it's not so much about, what are the Bucks doing defensively? What kind of looks are they giving him? It's just like Jimmy can be that dude to straight up carry you in a game. The Heat need that this year. They're not quite as good as last year. They're not getting the insane performances from guys like Jay Crowder that they were last year. And so, frankly, Jimmy just needs to be that dude, because in the finals, it got them 2 games in a spot where they shouldn't have gotten any games, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Miami pushed the Lakers more games than any other team in the Western Conference, and they faced a murderous row of teams over there, right?
Yep.
And that's Jimmy alone. Like you said, Jimmy with no Goran, with a 50% ban for 1 game and not having him 2 games, that just shows what Jimmy can be. So, closing thoughts going into this game. Hey, game 3 is do or die. So we need to get this one. Jimmy needs to go out there. He needs to do his thing. We need to get a win. If we lose, we lose, right? But at the end of the day, you need to leave it all on the court and finish with nothing left to regret. I don't want the Heat to go to bed thinking we could have done this. You don't want we could have at the end of that game. So we just need to go out there, leave everything on the court, grind it out hard, get this dub. And hey, I still believe we still got to get guts, right? We went down 0-2 in the 2006 finals and we came back and got it done. Hey, hopefully Jimmy can lead us this time. Anything else from you, brother?
Just to speak a little bit more to that point, more recently, this Bucks team, minus Drew Holiday and some of the role players that they have, not the exact same team, but a lot of the main figures are the same. What was up 2-0 on the Raptors in 2019 and then lost that series heading back to Toronto. And I think it was, I forget who it was, but on Twitter, somebody had pointed out that it was like the way that series played out in the first 2 games was more or less the same that this one played out, where in the first game, it was essentially Kyle Lowry going bananas and not getting any help and nobody else being able to make shots. And the Bucks eked out an overtime victory or a really close victory. And then in game 2, the Bucks just blew the doors off the Raptors. They went back to Toronto and the Raptors dominated the rest of that series, winning the next 4 games. I'm not saying that this Heat team is that Toronto team. All I'm saying is that a 2-0 series deficit when you lost both games on the road is not a doomsday scenario. It's definitely not ideal, but you can go home. If you get game 3, just get game 3. All of a sudden it's a series. The pressure is, ramps up for both teams. Frankly, I've seen how this Heat team copes with pressure. I've seen it before. I saw it last year. They do pretty well under pressure. So I expect them to respond tomorrow. I expect them to hopefully get a couple of games in Miami. If they don't, it's over. It is what it is. You lost to a better team, but I'm not ready to write that book yet.
Absolutely. Pat Riley famously said, and Greg talks about this a lot, the series never starts until the home team loses.
Yep.
Right? We still just got to defend home court. We got to go out there. We got to get it done. Hey, I believe in the squad. I believe we can still get it done. It's going to be hard. Milwaukee's definitely have more talent than us. We're going to have to play at an A level every game. And if we don't, we're probably going to lose this series. But hey, I still believe in this team. Thank everybody in the comments for joining us. All of our guys as well. Crypta, Ayan Ali,
Drew Holiday Burner hating everything we're saying.
Burner,
it's all good, brother. We
Chapter
appreciate
life.
it.
Hey, Drew Holiday Burner makes it all the better, man. The more perspective. I appreciate everybody in the comments, man. Bucks in 4, even coming in, respecting, saying this series is over. Right? Hey, appreciate you coming in as well. Thank you as always for hopping on the good, the bad, and the ugly. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We got my man, Mr. Ariel Attias. I'm Johnathan Ramlakan, and we'll see you after the next game, which will be probably Friday. So we'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good one, guys.